Good morning and welcome once again to Online Church with Pastor D. We are live coming from Chandrish Studios and sharing with you a very important and a very significant message today that I've been talking about for a very long time. But today is the day that I begin this special series. Well, just let me again welcome all of you to Online Church with Pastor D. I am here usually every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock AST on Facebook Live, and then shortly after the broadcast has come to an end, it is uploaded to YouTube. So you can go to either my Facebook page, Good Morning Jackie, you can either go to my Facebook page, Philip Drayton, or you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Pastor D, just the letter D, or Gospel Circle Barbados, where you will find all of my reflections videos, which are 15-minute videos designed to inspire, encourage, and be a blessing to you as you listen to them. Some people use them in their devotional time and so on, but those usually come out very early on Wednesday morning when I'm able to get them prepared. So you are welcome to be a part of that. Also, if you want to get in touch with me via email, you can do so at phildbage@gmail.com, and I will receive your emails, or you can WhatsApp me at 1246-255-7953. Well, as I mentioned before, welcome all of you. This is a different kind of a day, a different kind of a presentation. I am doing everything, so I will be a little somewhat distracted because I'm dealing with my notes. I'm dealing with a PowerPoint that some of you, I'm sure, all of you should be able to see already. Have you found it there, Allison? Have you found it? Okay. You'll be able to see a smaller picture of myself, video of myself, as well as the PowerPoint that is up there. So, welcome to Online Church with Pastor D. I begin a special series today that I've been talking about for many months, and therefore, this teaching will require you, wherever possible, to have your Amplified Bible available. Mind you, all the scriptures, most of the scriptures will be up on screen so that you are easily able to take notes, as well as obviously my major points. So as we are looking into this study today, um, you will realize that as we go along, not just today, but as we go along from week to week, this will take me several weeks to complete. You will be able to take notes, make notes, but the notes will become more intense as we go further on in the study. So what you didn't know is that as I've been sharing with you just over the past year, pretty much every week I say something about deception, but I do not phrase it under the title of deception, but certainly I talk about the fact that there is so much deception in the earth. You will find that several things that will be mentioned in this study will be things that will be familiar to you, as I have mentioned them in various contexts over the past year that I've been sharing on Online Church with Pastor D. What this message does, or what this series does, it consolidates all these thoughts and presents them as a cohesive body of truth for your consideration and for your action. Well, the original message, this is what I've brought up to date, was called The Deceptiveness of Deception. And many years ago, I did this series, but now obviously it is very different. Over 20 years ago, I had a vision. In this vision, I was sitting at my desk in my office. I was at People's Cathedral at the time, and there was this creature up in the top left-hand corner of my office. And I was looking at it, trying to figure out what it was. And then it slowly began to turn to face me, turn to look at me. And just as it was getting where I could see its face, the vision ended. And it was a little strange to me, but then I understood that this spirit, this creature that was up in the corner of my office, was actually the spirit of deception. And what happened was that as it was turning for me to see it, I came out of this vision because the truth is, my mind and your mind uh, are not capable of distinguishing how really ugly this spirit is. So actually, what we are looking at is now called the ugliest spirit on earth, the spirit of deception. I don't know if I use all of that title, but in certainly the first one, this is what I'll be sharing about over the next several weeks. The ugliest spirit on earth, the spirit of deception. I'm going to show you a picture very, very, very shortly that gives you a very real picture of ugly. This actually comes from a competition that is held every year for the ugliest dog, believe it or not. And here is a picture, I believe, of one of the winners of this competition. I know it's a little scary, a little ghastly. It's not Photoshop. This is what this dog actually looks like. Now, just take a look at this picture. The truth is, none of us, with our knowledge of dogs, of animals, could ever conceive of such an ugly dog. The reality is the spirit of deception is such an ugly spirit that what I was saying to you earlier is that our mental faculties cannot even imagine how ugly and disgusting this spirit is. So in the first part of this message, I will be dealing with a kind of a light pictorial representation of deception, and then we're going to go into something deeper and something heavier as we look at it. Let me give you an outline of what I will be doing the next several weeks. I can't tell you that it will be one per week, but here's what I will be doing. As I said, we're going to start with a pictorial representation of deception, and then we'll move into biblical and contemporary realities. We will look at deception facts, real or imagined. That will come very soon. The case for deception is something that we will look at. Again, these may come together. Then we're going to move into deception and the last days. I know that will be interesting for you. Deception and the church. Many of you who are my regulars will be very interested to hear this and to see what is presented. But of course, as I said to you before, in many of the messages that I've shared in the past, I have talked about deception in the church. I just didn't call it deception in the church or deception and the church. Then two more points we will deal with. When I say points, I mean messages we will deal with is conditions that may lead to deception. So things that you may or may not be involved with that may open you to the spirit of deception. And then finally, I will deal with how to keep yourself from being deceived, how to keep yourself from being deceived. So as we go now into this pictorial presentation, we can get away from this terrible ugly dog and move into the beginning. What do you see here? Look at it, think about it, and let me make a statement as we begin in principle. There is a strong spirit of deception that has been loosed or released on the earth at this time. Let me say that again. There is a strong spirit of deception that has been released or loosed on the earth at this time. I cannot give you a chapter and a verse for this, but I'm telling you, it is as true as the sun is hot in Barbados. We need to be aware of this spirit of deception, the ugliest spirit on the earth, and be prepared to defend ourselves and deal with this spirit. This message is designed to help us do this. All right, so let's look at some more pictures. I put one there for you. What do you see? It says, appearances are deceptive. And immediately as you see this picture, you see two elderly people, male and female, looking at each other. But upon closer inspection, because this picture is designed to deceive, upon closer inspection, you will see two persons with Mexican hats on. On the right hand side, the male face that you see is actually a male wearing a Mexican hat and serenading a female on a guitar. If you look carefully, you will see that. Now, I'm not going to keep these pictures up until you figure it out, and I won't know when you figure it out. But if you look on the other side, you will see a lady with her hands on her head holding something on top of her hat, and her waistband makes the mouth of this elderly lady. A picture that's designed to deceive. Let me go on with some more. Here is a picture of people sliding or falling into a deep hole. What it really is, if you look at the other parts of this photograph, you will see people standing around looking at this hole. It is actually a painting on a sidewalk. But the artist is so clever and so talented that he was able to paint a 3D rendering of people maybe falling into hell. It's an incredible work of art. And I suppose had I been walking on the street and stumbled upon that, I would have gone wrong because I wouldn't want to fall into that hole. But it is actually not a hole. It is a flat surface, but painted to look like a hole. Let me give you another one, and there's several of them. This is quite simple. This young lady looks like she has no body. There's a head, two hands, and two legs. But as you can well appreciate, easy to see this one. She has a mirror holding across her body, and the mirror is picking up the reflection of the grass that's all around her, and it gives the illusion that she has, in fact, no body. But this is an easy one. All of them are not so easy to figure out. These are photographs that are designed to deceive. Now, I want you to look at this one. This is, for me, the most interesting of all that I will share with you. And there are not that many, but this is the most interesting of all of them. And when you look at this, you have to ask yourself, is this truth? Is this a half truth? Is there such a thing as a half truth? Is this a lie? Is it deception? And I suppose at this point, I would have to introduce this thought that deception sometimes is not um, an issue of a thing, but the motive behind that thing. It's not just an action, maybe, but the motive behind that action. Let me give you an example. I know for a fact that there are some businesses that will, in their annual report, for example, they will say to the investors, the shareholders, well, we lost $37 million last year or in the third quarter of last year. When in fact, it is not that they lost $37 million, it is that they made $37 million less than the year before or the period that is being reported on. So it may not be that they've actually lost money, but simply not made as much. So what I'm introducing to you in this thought is that you can present things in such a way that they give an image, whether that image is actually true or not is where our debate would come in. But it can present a side or a factor that, while it may appear a certain way, there are other factors that maybe are not reported upon or are hidden that will present a very different picture. So when you say, well, you know what, we've had an increase in investors last year, that sounds very good. We've had an increase in investors. But what is not said is that those investors invested less money than the year before. So it is presented, while it is factual, there has been an increase in investors. The fact also is that the investments were actually less, even though there were more people giving. This is something that you could look at, for example, with church offerings on an annual basis, etc., etc. We talk about how many people tithe, how much they give in their tithes, how many new ones came on, how many old ones stopped. Not old people, but old tithers stopped tithing. So you can look at things, and based on how they are presented, it could determine whether the thing is deception or not. And this it causes us to ask questions and to ponder for a while. Is something true? Is it half true? Is there such a thing as a half truth? Is it necessary always to present all the facts, or is it a case where sometimes it is justified presenting part of the facts or not. That's not something that we can just answer like that. There is no a simple answer. This is something that you have to give serious consideration to. But at the end of the day, please be aware that your motives very often will determine whether a thing is deceitful, a thing done is deceitful, or it is not. You could also ask yourself, I thought about this just a few moments before I came onto the broadcast. There may be a situation where the government of a country, we're going to come back to that, though very, very likely, the government of a country may not say certain things because they don't want the country to go into a state of panic. So they may not say certain things. And we have to ask ourselves, is that justifiable or is it unjustified for the government to hold back certain information? You see, there are gray areas when it comes to the whole thought and concept of deception. And I think this picture is one of the best examples that I can find regarding the gray areas of deception. Okay, let's move on to another. This seems like just a picture of a grassy, bushy, tree infested area, but I want to assure there is a giraffe in this picture. This was one of the original slides I used when I did this as the deceitfulness of deception or deceptiveness of deception. There is a giraffe in this picture, this photograph, and I know some of you are saying, no, there's not. Yes, there is a giraffe there. I can see it because I know where to find it. I know what I'm looking for. But I think you can see my cursor, and I'm going to show you where the giraffe is at. Has anybody seen it yet? No, I'm deceiving you. It is not there. It is actually right here. This is the giraffe's neck. This is his nose and mouth, eyes, ears, horns. If the giraffes have horns, I'm not sure. This is the body right here. That's the body, and the legs are somewhere down here. Not easy to see, but it's just a camouflage that has taken place. And this photograph, taken at just the right time, comes across as being deceitful, deceptive. But this is a picture of a giraffe standing there. Now, this one, can you see the ant in the picture? Yes, A-N-T. Can you see the ant in the picture? Well, of course you can't, because the ant is so small and there are so many hundreds of them in this photograph that you can't see them. But I put that in there to deceive you. You can't see the ants, but I assure you there are ants in this picture. There may be other creatures as well, but I have no idea. I don't know who took the picture or where it was taken. But this is just another example of how you can present something. You can actually present something to people that is obvious but contains hidden items, or there's a hidden agenda. All right, so we are moving from deceptive to deceived. As I said, the first part of this presentation is more pictorial, it's lighter, but we're going to get into the scriptures in a little while. So here we move from deceptive to deceive. The ugliest spirit on earth, the spirit of deception. So here we go. From deceptive to deceive. Here is a man opening a container of noodles, and I put the caption in, "This is not what I paid for." You assume you're getting a full container of noodles. That's not what you get, because you have been deceived. And I know there are many products that you can think of that when you check the packaging, it is not what you get in terms of contents. This one here is, oh there. Um, you can see what I wrote at the bottom, and this is a fact. Rat bait is 90% edible. Here's a rat about to eat some beautiful blue rat bait. You see it in blue and green and red in different colors. But the rats will eat this bait because it is 90% edible. The reality is that forgive me, rats have more sense than to eat poison, right? So whoever is designed the poison to kill the rat, what they do is that they make it edible, palatable for the rat, so the rat will consume it. But the 10% poison that is hidden in that bait, in that food, if I can use that term, that 10%, by the time the rat gets back to his home or her home, their hiding place, then that 10% will kick in and kill the rat. I want you to begin to think now about the state of the church. And the reality is that in many ways we have ingested bait that is 10% poisonous and will kill us eventually if we are not treated and deal with that poison. I trust that this broadcast is coming out fine. This one here is a little shocking to the senses, but remember what we're talking about. We're moving from deception to being deceived. This is what we're talking about. Here's a picture of a man who has just won the some European song competition, and I think he sang. And you can see how he's dressed. He is dressed as a female. His hair is as a female, but his face is covered with beard and mustache, and we're not quite sure. And folk, don't get me wrong. I will never make fun of a person like this. We're dealing with a spirit of deception, and there's nothing funny about a person in this situation. Nothing funny at all. But I wanted to represent and show you how this spirit can so change a person that they no longer understand who or what they really are. If that isn't ugly, I don't know what ugly is. Here's another one. This is a picture. Obviously, it's made up, but it is representing a gentleman who has taken an overdose of tablets and committed suicide. And there's a forensic pathologist there looking at him and sizing up the situation. This man was lied to in his head and told, if you just end it all, your problems will disappear. Well, you and I know that suicide does not solve any problems. As a matter of fact, it ushers in a whole set of even greater problems, hurt, despair for others around. And so here is a picture of someone who has been deceived into thinking that suicide is a solution or an answer when we know full well it is not. And then just a picture of lies, deceit, inaccuracy, scams. We're going to come to that just shortly again. But this is the world in which we live today. I say I'm just giving a pictorial representation, but we're going to get off of the pictures very shortly and then go into the teaching on this subject. So we have all this stuff going on, all these scams going on. Many scams come out of Nigeria, but certainly not only from Nigeria. The one I think about, no, I'll come to that in a minute. Let me go on to the next picture. This one is Jennings. Trying to remember his first name. He was Bruce Jennings. He was an athlete. I believe he was actually an Olympian, a successful athlete. But after some shampoo and a makeover, he is now saying that his name is Caitlin. Um, this is again another picture of what deception can do to a person. Um, Beloved, take a look, take note, but let's move on. Let's move on and see what we can find. All right, so we're looking at some deception facts. This is where we'll get into now a definition of deception. So if you have your notebook, you're going to get ready to take some notes. Here is a deception, sorry, a definition of deceive or deception. All right. Just let me bring my. Here you go. All right. Now, I'm assuming you're making notes. If you are making notes, I will leave it up there for a little while that you can get it down. A verb to deceive in reference to deceiving a person. You cause someone to believe something that is not true. Now, When I give you this definition, many of the things I share with you going forward in this message will actually come back to this definition or some aspect of this definition for you to understand how rampant deception really is on the earth. We're going to look at that shortly. So, to cause someone to believe something that is not true, typically, not always, but typically, in order to gain some personal advantage. So you deceive someone generally, cause them to believe something that's not true in order to gain some personal advantage. In many cases, this is driven by money, but not always. There are many different reasons why someone may deceive you, but very often it is to gain some personal advantage. Let me give you some synonyms. These are words that have similar meanings that will help you to understand what to deceive or deception really is. So you have the word swindle, where you swindle somebody out of, very often again, their money or their possessions. Defraud, right? Cheat, trick, hoodwink, hoax. A hoax is, is a deception. To dupe, you dupe a person or to take in. That's another term that's used to describe deception. Mislead, a lot of that in the world today. A lot of things are put out there to mislead us. To delude, to fool, which is like to trick, to outwit, to outsmart, to lead on. This tends to happen mostly with relationship, not just a relationship, but with between members of the opposite sex and so on. But it also can happen with somebody leading you on into some kind of scam or some kind of hoax or something of the sort. There's another word that I never knew until I did this, and I'm not sure if it is inveigle or inveigle, but here it is, and it's there on the screen, so you can make a note of that. To inveigle or inveigle someone is to deceive them. Beguile. The serpent beguiled Eve. He deceived her. Double cross. You go one way and then you turn the other way. You present one face and then you do something different. So double cross, and then another word which sounds like a bird, gull. Gull. So all of these words help us to understand, because they're very similar in meaning, what it is to deceive a person. Deception of a thing. You give a mistaken impression. You give a mistaken impression. Let me give you a perfect example. The apple that I showed you a few minutes ago gives a mistaken impression, right? The thing deceives you because it shows you one side and doesn't show you the other side. Looks like I've actually answered my question. So, is it a half truth? Is it a lie? Is it deception? Is it semantics? Is it a matter of just presenting, this interpretation, or a matter of interpretation? I present it with this interpretation rather than another. So you can look at, two people can look at the same figures and interpret them differently, right? That we're talking about accountants, etc., etc. You can look at the same figure and interpret them differently. Once I was talking with him, I was witnessing to an old guy, and I shared this before, I believe, and he was saying about why those people have so many different impressions of the Bible, so many different interpretations of the Bible. I said he had I believe it was an old Ford Escort in his garage. It was his car, a white car, and in those days the bumpers of the car were made of metal, and they were chrome plated so that they would shine. And I said, look at that bumper. Tell me what you see. He says, it's silver. I said, that's correct. I said, but when I look at it, I see rust spots. So then he told me he had things to do, so basically I needed to leave. The point I'm trying to make is what he saw in the bumper was absolute truth. It was a silver bumper. But what I saw in the same bumper was rust spots. And that was equally true. It was silver and it had rust spots. So you can present it as, I have a silver bumper to show you. I can present it as I have a bumper with rust spots to show you. Neither of us really is telling a lie, but we are saying what we are seeing, the impression that is given. All right. So let me go. Sorry. This last one, part of the definition here, I don't remember which dictionary this came from, probably Merriam-Webster. But this last one here is the one that is most relevant for persons like myself and those of you who are Christians who may be viewing this broadcast. Failure to admit to oneself that something is true. Failure to admit to oneself that something is true. A person, let me step out, a person who is not a Christian may um, may not want to admit to themselves that they are going to go to hell if they die or when they die. They may not want to accept that truth. In the church, we may not want to accept truths about ourselves, but because we don't accept or admit it, doesn't mean that they aren't true. So again, when you start to get into the definition and the understanding of deception, just like the apple in the mirror with the bad back, you can have shades of gray and things that may need to be interpreted based on the context or based on the motive behind that particular thing or that particular action. And so as we consider and go into our study from point to point, we have to understand that if you fail to admit to yourself that something is true, you are actually deceiving yourself. And to me, that is the worst form of deception, self deception. Let's go on. All right, so deception, real or imagined. Did I share with you? Yes, I did. Deception, real or imagined. I'm going to share some stuff with you now that will require me to do some reading, but it's important for you that I share this information with you. You have a list of things here, and there are two of these slides with in yellow different things that either are deceptive or contain or are based on deception itself. So I want to share with you about the first three, and then you can make a note of these things, even though you should be able to figure out most of them. And then there will be a second slide coming in just a moment. So we're dealing with this reality. Now I want you to bear with me here. Here's my question for you, my question for myself, but I've worked through this already. I'm presenting it to you, and I will bring it back at the end of this section. Faith, trust must have some basis. Otherwise, it is presumption. I use a very simple illustration. You walk into a room and you sit on a chair. It is because you have the faith or you trust that that chair is strong enough to hold your weight. If you are a little heavy set, like I tend to be sometimes, let's not talk about when those times are. But if you know that you pass a certain weight and you go in, especially those little white plastic chairs, you will think twice before you sit on one of them. As a matter of fact, I've seen many cases where in the past people have doubled them. They put a second chair on top of the first one because they are afraid, as has happened in many instances, that one of the legs will give out. That plastic leg, which is not strong, will just give out and you will come tumbling down with that chair. So some people double them. Point I'm trying to make is when you go into a room, you walk into a room, you see a chair, a couch, a bench, whatever, there is faith that has to step in to say, okay, what is my basis for sitting on this? My basis is it will hold my weight. It will bear me up. So your faith or your trust must have some basis. Otherwise, it's presumption. You can't presume that things will be or are what they propose or purport to be. Remember, we're dealing with the ugly spirit on earth, the spirit of deception. So in the context of what we're saying, your reason for believing something or someone must have a real basis. Now, what is your basis? Please listen to this very carefully, and if you're going to make a note, make a note. But what is your basis for trusting, believing any word spoken by any individual, political leader, government, health organization, literature, what you read, the internet, social media posts? What is your basis? What is your reason for trusting what these persons say or what the image before you says to you? If someone has no moral compass, no moral anchor, what is our basis for trusting that individual or what that individual communicates? Let me say that again. If someone has no moral compass, I'm repeating this because it is extremely important. If someone has no moral compass, no moral anchor, what is your basis? What is our basis for trusting that individual or anything that that individual communicates? Now, the list that you have before you, just let me make sure I have the right slide up. All right. The list that you have before you starts with three identical strangers. Now, listen, please, to this. Surprise turns to shock and then outrage. That's the theme of Three Identical Strangers, a documentary film released last summer. That was January 19th, 2018. This documentary was released. And now it's being screened by CNN. The film also has a less well-known precursor called The Twinning Reaction. Now, the Three Identical Strangers is actually a documentary you can get and you can watch it. I don't know. It probably is on Netflix. I believe it is. But you can check it out there. Three Identical Strangers. True story documentary. Both the Twinning Reaction and Three Identical Strangers chronicle twins and triplets born in the 1960s who were separated as infants and adopted by different families who had no idea of the other siblings' existence. Hold on. The separation and secrecy were unethical aspects of an experiment that sought to examine contributions of genetics and environment to child development. So they were doing this study. Although some aspects of the research have been reported over the ensuing decades, clear information, listen carefully, about its aims, designs, and results have never been published. Never been published. The study records, not records, that's the English language. The study records reside at Yale University, where they were deposited by the lead researcher, Dr. Peter Neubauer, and sealed. These records are sealed until 2065. This is 2021. Basically, by the time they're unsealed, everyone involved would likely be dead. No one, not the subjects, reporters, filmmakers, or researchers, has been given access to anything more than snippets of information. Now, this is significant. The National Institutes of Health contributed some funding for the study, and it was also supported by philanthropic foundations. So this was not a broad, wide thing that included a whole lot of people, but this was something that national governmental organizations actually subscribed to. The second thing you see on your list should be, we would say in Barbados, Tuskegee, but in the US you might say Tuskegee. This is taken from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC webpage. The net widens. In 1932, the U.S. Public Health Service, working with the Tuskegee Institute, began a study to record the natural history of syphilis If you're old enough to watch this broadcast, you're old enough to know what syphilis is. In hopes of justifying treatment programs for black people, it was called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. The study initially involved 600 black men, 399 with syphilis, 201 who did not have the disease. The study, the study was conducted without the benefit of patients' informed consent. Right now, it's being said that we don't have to take a vaccination if we choose not to, but bear with me. In July 1972, an Associated Press story about the Tuskegee study caused a public outcry that led to the Assistant Secretary for Health and Scientific Affairs in the United States to appoint an ad hoc advisory panel to review the study. The panel found that the men had agreed freely to be examined and treated. However, there was no evidence that researchers had informed them of the study or its real purpose. In fact, the men had been misled and had not been given all the facts required to provide informed consent. I hope you're catching what I'm reading. The men were never given adequate treatment for their disease. Even when penicillin became the drug of choice for syphilis in 1947, researchers did not offer it to the subjects. The advisory panel found nothing to show that subjects were ever given the choice of quitting the study, even when this new, highly effective treatment became widely used. Another example, in 2010, it was publicly disclosed that a Wellesley College historian had discovered that the United States government had been involved in carrying out never published studies in which vulnerable Guatemalans, people from Guatemala, were intentionally infected with sexually transmitted diseases in the 1940s. President Barack Obama quickly apologized and tasked his bioethics commission with finding out what happened. Beloved, when I'm reading this and I'm looking at COVID-19, questions are popping up in my head. But let me give you one more. This is the third one on your list. Making a Killing, the Untold Story of Psychotropic Drugging. This also is a documentary that you can find under that title, Making a Killing, the Untold Story of Psychotropic Drugging. Listen to this. It's the story of big money, drugs that fuel a U.S. $330 billion psychiatric industry. You got that? $330 billion industry without a single cure. Let me repeat that. Drugs that fuel a U.S. $330 billion psychiatric industry without a single cure. The cost in human terms is even greater. These drugs now kill an estimated 42,000 people every year, and the death count keeps rising. Containing more than 175 interviews with lawyers, mental health experts, the families of victims, and the survivors themselves, this riveting documentary rips the mask off psychotropic drugging and exposes a brutal but well-entrenched money-making machine. I now introduce to you another aspect of deception. Let me go on. Despite decades of tragedies and countless deaths caused by psychotropic drugs, they are marketed to even greater numbers of Americans for the sake of huge profits. Mental health professionals and victims of psychotropic drugging expose the common marketing tactics and accuse the industry of knowing full well the dangers of these drugs. If you have any kind of awareness as to what is happening in our world right now, this reads like someone is watching and making notes. Let me share with you before I move off from this commonly prescribed psychotropic medication. These are the medications that fuel a $330 billion market without one single cure. Tell me if you recognize any of these names. Paxil, Prozac, Zoloft, Lorazepam, Thorazine, Abilify, Valium. All these drugs, if you get the documentary and watch it, you will see how uh, deception is making people extremely rich, extremely rich. But let me go back to my PowerPoint. Three identical strangers, the Tuskegee experiment, making a killing, the untold story of psychotropic drugging. All of us should be aware of this. National government this and false information and political promises. How many times have we seen an election or coming up to the election, the party that seeks to be elected will stand, or the person seeking to be elected will stand and make all these promises. My party, if I'm elected, I will do this, that, the next, and the third. And then when they get into power, they have 5 years, 10 years, and they never fulfill those promises. My question is, were they really promises or were they deceitful lies? Fake news. It's there on your screen. Fake news. This became very popular during the administration of President Trump. Global deception. This one, I was when it was a part of Y2K, year 2000, Y2K. When it moved from 1999 to 2000, our computers were going to crash. And a lot of people spent a lot of money to make sure that their computers were Y2K proof. What an incredible uh, global hoax that was. I hope you understand what I'm trying to present to you and show you. Deception is real or imagined deception. Hollywood, oh boy, we could go down the road. Let me see if there's something that I had on Hollywood. Um, I think there was a note that I had on Hollywood that I wanted to share with you. I don't seem to be able to find it right now. That is very sad. But essentially, just let me give you one little example. Just checking my notes here to see if I put it somewhere that I didn't remember where I put it. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Yes, it is. Okay. You know about the Hollywood industry. You know about the movie industry. This is just one little thing I'm going to share with one little thing I'm sharing with you to give you an idea of what's going on. Netflix, that many of us subscribe to, season 3 of a Netflix cartoon, right? So we don't know if this cartoon is for children or if it's for adults, but season 3 of a Netflix cartoon called Paradise PD, PD, Paradise PD, features a gun wielding Jesus who comes down from the cross to kill his persecutors. So Jesus comes off the cross, shoots his persecutors with a machine gun, and then has sex with 2 women. This is a Netflix cartoon called Paradise PD. And I just got that information over the weekend between Friday and yesterday. This is the world that we are living in, beloved. I'm enjoying myself. Like I said, we haven't got into the meat of this yet. So that's Hollywood. Then there is a second one. You can make a note of these as well. The abortion agenda. There's a lie that has been perpetrated on the earth that the thing inside of you that has been conceived is not a human being. That is a lie, and that is deception. There's a lie that goes with that that says you have the right over your body to do what you want with it. So if you get rid of that thing that is growing inside of you, you are simply exercising your human rights as a woman. You will also find with the abortion agenda that they want to be, they're giving people a false understanding of the human life within them, right? And this is extremely, extremely deceptive and deceitful. The homosexual agenda, I could spend the whole day talking about this, but the reality is there is a and many lies, many deceptions that are being foisted on the world using different mediums, including Hollywood, but not only Hollywood, to get the earth to accept that what God says is an abomination is actually a human right. Beloved, you have to appreciate what I'm saying to you today, that we are surrounded by deception and the spirit of deception. And this is an extremely ugly spirit. But then we talk about the World Wide Web. Not that the World Wide Web is in itself deceptive, but there's a lot of deception on there. Viruses, things that sneak onto your system and sometimes can shut you down. Spyware, things that check your information. I actually have it there about data mining software. This is not same thing, but very, very close. Ransomware, where people very recently, there was a pipeline that was shut down, I believe it was in the United States of America, and the persons who sat on their computers and shut down this pipeline were paid 5 million US dollars to reverse this virus and reopen this pipeline. That's what you call ransomware. So they put something, install something sneakily onto your system that will actually take over your what controls your water, whatever the case is, your computer, whatever it is. These are, I may not know all the details about this, but these things exist and they are rooted in deception. Passive listening software. I talked about this recently, and as well as spy software in the sense of um, people being able to watch you through the lens of your computer, phone, etc., etc. The technology exists. Okay, there are people who can sit and spy on you through the lens of your camera. People have been advised that you either turn your camera off on your laptop until you need to use it, like for a Zoom call or whatever, or that you put some tape over that camera, because it has been proven that people can actually spy on you through your computer or through your little camera that you may put onto your computer, so you can your webcam through your webcam. Passive listening software. You are well aware that you can be in a conversation with somebody about buying a car, and then all of a sudden you will see ads for cars come onto your Facebook page or come into your email inbox, etc., etc. I want you to understand something that is true. Do you know that companies have legally been given permission to spy, to listen to our conversation? They have been given legal permission to do that. You can say what they want in the news, but I'm telling you, come because I have seen it, I know it is true. They've been given legal permission, but the permission was given only for the purpose of marketing. Only for the purpose of marketing. Well, let me tell you what. If I know things about you that are not necessarily good things, I might be tempted to use them for reasons other than marketing. Don't forget, we're dealing with, and I'm coming to it again very, very short, we're dealing with a world that has no moral compass. Let me move on and go on. Deep fakes. This is, to me, the most scary of all of them. So let me do the other two and then come back to deepfake. Malicious pyramid schemes. Remember Bernie Madoff, who made so much money from these pyramid schemes, and he built people of just billions, I think it was billions of dollars, but an incredible amount of money. I didn't check to see how much it was, but an incredible amount of money was taken out of people's pockets and hands through malicious pyramid scheme run by Bernie Madoff. And then the music industry, very much joining hands with the Hollywood and the movie industry, where many, many lies are presented, not necessarily from an industry perspective, but those who use the industry, music industry, present a lot of horrible things that are intended to teach us lies. Need to be careful. Deep fakes. I'm going to end this section here with this. Deep fakes. It's 55 minutes gone, so I do need to wrap up for today. Um, Again, the technology exists that a common person like you or me, I don't know who's watching, but a person like myself would never be able to figure it out. Where it is, this is a reality that, and it came up again under the Trump administration. I'm not saying they're responsible for it, but do you know that technology exists to put my image into a context, scenario, place, country where um, I am not. It can actually put me into a place where I am not. All right. So you can now watch a video of me going into a brothel, and you will not be able to prove that that is a fake or false video because the technology exists that it will look so real that the average person would never be able to figure out that it is a deep fake. That's why it's called a deep fake, not just a fake, but a deep fake. Before you could look at something and a few images, a few little clues can tell you, oh no, that's not true. That's been photoshopped, that's been doctored and so on. But now the technology exists where you cannot look at it. You cannot look for identifying or revealing factors that tell you that the thing is a lie. Now, this presents all kinds of problems where you can blackmail a person, you can give false information about the person, but then in the person's, let's say what I talked about, a video comes out of me going into a brothel. Um, I can now say, no, that's a deep fake. So, and as if it is not a deep fake, it is true. This is an actual recording of me going into a brothel. I now can appeal to deep fake. And I can say to you, no, 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 that's a deep fake. I would never do a thing like that, and truth is I never would. But have it being presented even as truth, even in truth, I can now say, but there's a possibility that this never happened. This is a deep fake. So now you get to a place that even same things that you see, you're not sure if you can actually believe them because even within that industry, there is deception. Beloved, I ask you again, um, what is your basis for trust? What is your basis for faith? How do you know that anything anyone says to you is true? How do you know if anything presented, whether on the World Wide Web, presented on television, to presented on audio format, how do you know that that thing is actually true? What is your basis for believing this? If a government says something to you, if a government does not say something to you, an individual, a health organization, we have a lot of pronouncements from Dr. Anthony Fauci, a lot of pronouncements from the World Health Organization, the CDC, which earlier up I shared with you how the CDC got involved in things that were downright wrong. Here's the reality. You have national organizations funding things that are immoral and should not be done. How do you know that literature that you read is actually truthful? If, and I present it to you again as I'm coming to the close of this message, if someone has no moral compass, no moral anchor, what is your basis for trusting anything that that individual or organization says to you or presents to you? Beloved, I hope in this session you have been able to catch a glimpse of how sinister and how serious and indeed how ugly this spirit of deception is. And whether you like it or not, you are swimming in a pool, in an ocean. You are living in a world that is completely involved in deception. We have to know how to respond to this. We have to be aware of this. We have to know how to deal with this. It's not going away. It is not going anywhere. It is here to stay. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there is a strong spirit of deception that has been loosed on the earth at this time. And beloved, this message, this series is intended to help us understand it. And that's kind of what I did this morning, present different scenarios where deception is rampant on the earth. And next week we begin with the case for deception. Why is there so much deception on the earth? And I will go directly to the Word of God and show you why this deception exists. And then we can draw our own conclusions from there again, as well as prepare ourselves to deal with it. Father, once again, I come before your presence and I say to you, God, thank you for helping me. Thank you for the people who prayed for me and are praying for me and will pray for me during this presentation of the ugliest spirit on the earth, the spirit of deception. And I pray, oh God, that you begin even now to loose persons who have been deceived. Lord, cause scales to fall from their eyes. Cause, oh God, truths to light up, Lord, and show them that their path is the wrong path. Cause them to see where they're being tricked, where there's an attempt to destroy their lives. Cause them, oh God, to be aware. The enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And that any opportunity he's given, he will take advantage of that opportunity to destroy their lives. Help us to walk in the light, to walk in the truth, and not be deceived. Lord, we give you praise and we give you thanks. In the most holy name of Jesus, amen and amen. Thank you for being a part of this broadcast today. I trust that everything has played through all right. My wife hasn't said anything, so I assume that things have worked out. And I pray that God's blessing will be with you and that you'll join me again next Sunday morning at 8 o'clock for the ugliest spirit on the earth, the spirit of deception, part 2. God bless you. We will see you. Have a great Lord's Day. Bye-bye.